Welcome back, everybody. We've got Steven and Jenna on the interview couch right now, and they're the brain people, the brain trust behind Spectrums, the musical app that we talked a little bit earlier about with Jeff. And so it's been funny because there's been a lot of musically inclined people coming in, and now we're talking. Hello, everyone. That was the fastest 5 minutes in human history. We are back. We actually have someone new on the couch. It is Jeremy Macdonald. He's a very, very large part of the Sphero EDU program here, and the development of the Bolt, which you saw in the bypass demo a little earlier today. So, Jeremy, tell us a little bit about yourself, where what you do here, and what your job is.
Sure. So, I work in the education team, and I manage all of our educational content and professional development. So I get to travel and work in schools and actually be with kids and teachers and actually see this stuff in action, and then bring back that feedback, and then work with the team here to develop some meaningful experiences that we can then take back again to the schools. So.
Cool. And so, like, how did you come upon that role, or even want that role, right? And because you used to be a teacher up in Oregon.
I was, yeah. So I was actually in public education for 13 years prior to coming to Sphero. I taught for about 8.5 years, moved into what's called instructional coaching, and then from there decided to go into district administration. And at that time in my last district, we were using Sphero quite a bit. We actually had quite a few of the original Spark edition that we were using, and I got connected with the product manager at the time for education and one of our sales managers, and we just started talking, and I said, hey, we got this role opening up, would you be interested? So I applied, and here I am.
And I think I met you 6 months later or something like that.
Yeah, at Comic-Con, yeah.
Yeah, and so Jeremy and I have done a panel together before, and so I know this guy's got a big brain on him, and so we're going to dive into that big brain a little deeper. And so, Jeremy, so you have your previous teaching experience. Now you're bringing it to the newest, specifically Sphero EDU product, which was the Bolt, which came out a couple months ago. And so the coolest thing about this, and Jeremy, I love using Spheros in classrooms, but this is clear and it has an LED panel, which really makes the possibility enormous in terms of how to use this. And so in terms of applications, Jeremy, what are some of your favorites that you've seen in classrooms, and what are some good ones to kind of start off with too?
Sure. So I mean, there's always nice and easy places. Oh, hello. Nice things to start with. The Matrix is really great because you don't have to animate it. You can just start with a simple drawing. So it's kind of like pixel art. It's 8 by 8. You have these circles, and you can create some very simplified versions of different images and stuff. But then it takes you to a level of animation where you're actually able to go frame by frame and create movement in those pictures that you create.
So you can make games.
Yeah, so you can make all sorts of games as long as your programming understanding of conditionals and those different types of events are there. You can essentially create all sorts of games. We already have like tic-tac-toe, Connect 4, different things like that in the app for folks to see. And we actually have a couple games being developed by some folks right now that we'll hopefully be able to share again later in the year. Don't want to give too much away, but it's pretty cool.
If you give too much away, then no one has to pay
attention.
Right?
No one has to pay attention.
Yeah, and so in terms of other applications, like for you've been a teacher for, you were a teacher for a long time. Now you're here working with the education department here at Sphero. And what are you, in terms of what Sphero is doing in this field, what are you most proud of?
I think it's providing access to tools that you can grow with. So I've seen this used as early as 4 and 5 years old in elementary schools. Some of the stuff I like to do with teachers actually at that age is create experiences where students, very similar to where actually I got the idea from Boulder. The preschool.
Boulder Journey.
There you go. Where you actually create experiences where students learn empathy through teaching a robot about their school, about what it's like to be in that school, expectation, norms, things like that. Which is really good at that young age to reiterate some of those expectations and norms so they can be successful.
Well, they're also going to enter a period of time where this stuff is going to be all around, right? So teaching them that skill of being just around the robots is really important too.
Yeah, definitely. And then, working into your middle elementary, upper elementary, we see a lot of kids beginning to program, beginning to understand basic conditionals and events and things like that. So most of those kids are playing video games at this point, and putting in that context of, a video game is just this massive web of like if-else statements, If I jump on the turtle dies, that kind of thing. If the turtle touches me, then I die. That kind of simple unconditional statements, but then showing them how to create those and then nest them within loops and things like that, so they're beginning to create their own artifacts that they can then share with their peers. All the way into middle school and high school, where we're seeing this being used quite a bit with math and physics. So I'm actually working on an activity for this weekend that will work on linear equations, finding slope, using tangent to find interior angles, and then actually calculating the time or the distance at which two spheros will collide when they're traveling at different speeds. So that old two trains leave, kind of story problem. We're going to recreate that with Sphero for some training this Saturday.
Super cool. And so, like, a lot of things, when a teacher or someone new is coming in with an educational product, it's like, why should I learn this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you've used a lot of words with a lot of syllables, right?
Yeah.
That I haven't heard since probably middle school or high school. And so, what is the learning curve like in using Bolt in your classroom?
I would say it's not all that steep. I mean, a lot of like we like to do is we like to call our activities or the resources we provide learner-led.
Nice.
So we want the teacher to be the learner as well. We want them to feel comfortable. They can go in. There's not a lot they're going to break with our software and our hardware. I mean, literally, like yesterday on the feed, I dropped this. It's not going to break. And the students and teachers can get in there, press buttons, move blocks around until they start to learn it. And so we really want it to be a learner-led experience where the teacher's going through this learning with their students. But at the same time, we try and provide resources for teachers. We do professional development. We do different outreaches like that. Mm-hmm. But I think for your average teacher, as long as there's a willingness to try and there's not a fear of the failure, it doesn't roll the direction they want, big deal, change the heading again and press start. So I don't think that the learning curve is all that steep if you're willing.
Okay. So that's the caveat, right?
Yeah.
It's that if you're willing, and in today's day and age, I hope you are, right? Because I think these skills, in terms of being a teacher, being a kid, are going to be so valuable moving forward. Mm-hmm. And so now that we've kind of talked about the product, do you have anything you want to show us how it works?
Yeah, I can show you a couple things.
Get some lights going.
Yeah, I created a fun little program that utilizes a few of the new sensors. So the ambient light sensor, which measures the luminance in the room over the space of the sensor over a given period of time. So I want to use that, and then it'll animate the matrices, and then I'm going to also use the infrared, which is going to be a really cool integration with Rover.
One of the
Hackathon events.
Yeah,
they're trying to avoid the infrared, but it's a great way to begin looking into swarm robotics. And so I'm going to create a fun little I created a fun little program that I want to run here real quick, let's connect some robots real quick, show you how simple it is.
And so what you're going to be seeing Jeremy doing right now is just kind of starting it up. He's done this already, but this is very simple. This is something that you can do in your classroom and at home with whoever is around as well. And again, you're seeing the lights pop up now. This is one of the better features for the Bolt because it's going to give a little bit more feedback immediately than a lot of what is already on the market.
So I've got two programs here. I'm not sure how well they're going to be seen on the screen there, but one essentially is going to be running the initial program. So this first program, this is going to be the robot that's asleep. So what I mean by that is in the program, he's going to pretend he's asleep, or it's going to pretend it's asleep, and it's going to snore. Let me make sure I have the right ID here. Sorry about the delay.
Oh no, we've learned about the demo curse today.
Yeah. I didn't realize. Yeah, I got called in short notice, so apologize.
No worries, man.
Let's see here. All right. Sorry about that.
It happens. And so as he's getting this set up, another really cool thing is what I really like is the teachers that I feel like are best with using the Bolt are the ones that kind of, like you said, lead that learning themselves when they get excited about the possibility, and then they share that excitement with their children. And just talking with Jeremy and a lot of the education team, everyone really shares that kind of that feeling when it comes to exploration of technology, how it can be utilized in someone's hands and how it can affect them, not just in a math and science way, which is where I think we automatically go when it comes to STEM and STEAM, but also in ways for language arts, just like Jenna said earlier with spectrums and learning how to read and social emotional empathy. And so that's all really exciting stuff, man.
So I'm going to call an audible and use my phone. I tried to use the bigger screen so we could all see it, but it's not liking me right now.
It's cool, man. And so as you're going, so you're good?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. So again, one robot is going to pretend it's sleeping, and then you all have that friend or neighbor that likes to be loud when you're trying to take a nap.
That's me.
That's going to be the other robot, and then we're going to see what happens. So there we go. All right, so this one is going to be the one sleeping, and this is the one that's going to be waking him up. So what's going to happen here is once I run the program, one is going to start making it like a chirping sound. That's the annoying one here. And when that one recognizes that I shine a flashlight on it, so it's going to flip on the light, so to speak, to wake him up, that one's going to get angry, and it's going to chase that one away. So
I feel like I've lived this in my life before.
So let's hope. Oh, do you have a phone on you?
I do.
Would you mind turning your flashlight on? That's why I brought my phone, was so I could turn the flashlight on. But
All right.
all right, perfect. But actually, let me turn this one around, and I'll have you shine the flashlight. So here in just a moment. So that's the ambient light sensor right there. So go ahead and aim it down so we don't. All right. So that's your annoying friend.
It's just like me.
So this one's snoring. Now go ahead and shine the light right there. Oh, there we go. Oh, and it runs away. There you go. So just using some loops. All right, we can stop that. Some loops and some different conditionals that was looking for the change in the light value. It triggered the condition where it sent out a infrared message that said, "Hey, run away."
Yeah, and so if you guys can't see the iPad right now, there's not a lot on it.
Nope.
And so while that might seem like there's a lot involved, there's only, it looks like 5 steps involved in this program.
Mm-hmm.
So this is on all of your EDU apps, this
Correct.
specific programming language or style. What is it, and why is it so useful for your products?
Yeah, for sure. So it's called block-based programming. It's a visual user interface for programming. And ours is now, the backend is now based on Scratch 3.0, which is very common, 2.2 million users around the world using Scratch in education. And so with that, we created a user interface that kind of mimics some of the Scratch. So there's not kids aren't having to learn different user interfaces. They learn to program. They can kind of go in between and have that
You don't have to like select a specific
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so now they have that familiar interface that allows them to go in between each one, depending on the purpose of their programming. And obviously here, each block represents kind of a bundle of code. So it's a set of directions. The most primary block is the roll block. So this is the block that essentially everybody starts off doing first, because that controls the movement of the robot in the easiest way. It controls its heading, its speed, and the duration for how long it rolls. So very simple to get the ball literally rolling. You use a roll block. So that's typically the first one, but it goes all the way through these different categories, and most of these blocks are very specific to Bolt, and then other blocks are common to just programming in general. So when you get into conditionals and controls, operators, things like that, it's things that they're going to see in every language. But then from here, you can actually take the code and view it in JavaScript. So as students become more and more familiar with the logic of block coding, block programming, we want them to begin to transition into the actual text interface where they're having to use syntax to understand and how to write their code. So we're working on ways to help students make that transition, because you go from something that's very visual to something that's completely text-based.
Yeah.
So how do we make that transition? How do we make that jump from one to the other? So hopefully we'll kind of find the silver bullet for that and make it easier for kids soon.
Well, at least you're exploring it, right?
Yep.
Instead of saying, hey, you just got to do the 2 different ways, we are
Right.
really going to try to push this into a world where we can make sure that you can make that jump. That's really, really cool. And so I'm coming in, say I'm looking into a Bolt, but I've got no programming background, right? When I enter this app, is there like a tutorial I can use?
Sure.
Is there like a good way for me to kind of just get my hands on it? No pressure about getting anything wrong.
Yeah, so built into the Sphero EDU platform is what we call activities. So traditionally a teacher might call these lessons. So these are kind of the lesson plans for teachers. And when you go into activities, there's a whole massive amount of activities either created by us here at Sphero. So this is part of my job here, is to create these activities for schools. And the other is created by teachers around the world. So we have I think it's close to 7,000 activities have been created by teachers around the world on varying grade levels and content. And so, back to your question, if you go to the Sphero activities, the very first activities at the top when you get there are all introductions to each of our programming canvases. So learn how to use the draw canvas, 4 lessons that introduce you to blocks and basic coding logic. And then we actually repeat the same activities, but in text. So now you take your knowledge of understanding those blocks and then translate it into what is the actual syntax for those blocks, and now repeat the same activity.
Awesome. So I've done my tutorials. I feel good about this block coding. Can I make my own blocks?
Not at this point.
Okay.
No. So yeah, all the blocks are pre-made, pre-programmed, and you can transition from blocks to JavaScript. Like you can copy that code over.
Okay.
However, you can't go backwards. You can't go create JavaScript and then try and get it to go back to the blocks.
Cool. And so once you make that, transition to JavaScript, it's kind of the world is your oyster at that point.
Oh
right?
yeah, there's so much more functionality in JavaScript than there is within the blocks. But if you go back and look through a lot of our Thursday Learn Days, we've tried to show you how complex of programs you can actually create just using blocks.
One of my favorite Thursday Learn Days is the Three Little Pigs, I believe, is one that you did. And so what he was, what you guys were doing was they did a whole story, a fairy tale with the bolts being the characters in this story, and that was honestly one of like the coolest things. I love it when technology is used in a non-science and math way, because I think we all know that technology and robotics is good for science and math, right? But it can be a part of a whole education, right?
Oh, most certainly, and we've seen that with teachers all over the world. We have our heroes that represent us in various forms.
Sphero heroes, yeah.
Yeah, our Sphero heroes, and they're amazing, and we get to see firsthand the great things they're doing. Yeah, I mean, you could check out everything that those teachers are doing. Follow us on Twitter, and you actually see all that great stuff every day.
Yeah, these Thursday Learn Days are incredible lessons for using the bolt. They're really good starting points, too. They kind of, like, now that you see Three Little Pigs, it's like, now I can do so many other things, right? And I can tell so many other stories. But one story that I like telling is how good our Kickstarter goal is going. And so we have about 15,901 left for our 3.19... I was doing
31,000.
I was going good. So we are about
415 and 93 cents, something like that. Yeah.
We are halfway there. So there's special things going on. So there's awesome purple treads if we do make that goal. There's a new part that you can donate for that's $314 that has a lot of special things like swag. I think a bolt's in it actually, so if you want to get your hands on a bolt and a rover, there are levels for the Kickstarter to allow you to do that. So please check it out. If you're thinking about doing it, look it up. You've seen a lot of this stuff, so hopefully we've helped you make your decision. And now we are going to go to a 10-minute break. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for coming in and demoing the bolts. We're going to see some bolts a little bit later on the Hackathon stations, but we're going to take a quick 10-minute break. This time for real. We'll see you soon.